Hello and welcome to another edition of the Falcon Crest. Oh, wait, where are my notes? After show. I have my notes somewhere. Oh, they went away. Falcon Crest After Show. I'm James Lott Jr., your host here on JLJ Media. It's very windy in Los Angeles, so if the power goes out as I'm recording this, I'll try again. But it's like super, super windy. It's kind of crazy here in Los Angeles. The weather all over the country is crazy. So those of you who are in Texas, I'm sending my heart out to. I know how what it's like to be cold, have no power. It's not fun. It's also deadly. It can be deadly. So my heart goes out to you down there. Back east, there's crazy weather back there too. It's Mother Nature ain't happy with us. But my heart goes out to everybody. I'm here. This is my second episode. Thank you, folks, for listening and or watching my premiere episode of the Falcon Crest After Show, where I just talked about kind of why I'm doing it. I didn't really get into a topic or anything yet, and you guys gave me some great numbers, so thank you so much. And I see there's interest. There's Falcon Crest Facebook groups. How do you guys out there? But I must actually start. I thought I begin this whole after show series by talking about why I actually love Falcon Crest. You saw in the title Dallas with grapes. That's how it was described at first, and then people realized it was not that at all. I'll give you a little side note if you didn't know this. Robert Foxworth, who played Chase Giamberti, was up for the role of J.R. Ewing on Dallas and turned it down. He didn't want to be that unlikable. So obviously Larry Hagman did a great job, and I do a Dallas after show. You can watch here on JLJ Media. So these are like maybe like 10 reasons why. Well, I guess it was 10. 1, 2, like 7 or 8 reasons why I love Falcon Crest, and I'll be covering many of these things later in much more concentrated episodes. But I want to give you an overview. So, one, the backdrop, Tuscany Valley. It just sounds so majestic. It sounds so regal. It was modeled after Napa or Sonoma in Northern California. If you've ever been, wine vineyards. What I liked about this is that it felt very old world. It felt like it was another country, even though it was California in landscape and in looks. It's had a very European feel to me. I wonder if you guys feel the same way. It just felt very European, but it was in America, of course. Loved the vineyards, loved the house. I mean, we know it's a set, but we love the house. All of that. I thought, what a great place to actually have this show. Number 2, the old Hollywood. They had a lot of old Hollywood stars show up. Maybe because Jane Wyman was old Hollywood, Oscar winner for, I think it was Johnny Belinda. The show was more glamorous than Dallas, but less outrageous than Dynasty, and not as homey as Knots Landing. It had its own style, and they brought on guest stars. Here's to name a few folks: Kim Novak, Cesar Romero, Gina Lollobrigida, Lana Turner, Robert Stack, Lauren Hutton, Ursula Andress. Sophia Loren was supposed to come on as Angela's sister, and it didn't work out. That's the little thing. But they brought people on, especially Kim Novak. They brought them on and actually used them in story. Imagine that. They actually used them in story and actually gave them things to do and to act. And it matched that whole other country feel, of European feel. It kept the sophistication of Angela Channing by Jane Wyman. There are rumors that her and Lana Turner didn't get along. That's another story. We'll talk about that in depth. But it was just fun to see all these old world stars show up. The other soaps didn't really do that. Dynasty did a couple of things. They had George Hamilton come on at one point, a few. Dallas had Donna Reed come on, of course, at one point. But I mean, it wasn't like they weren't like the other shows. The other shows didn't really do that. But Falcon Crest had a parade of stars of old Hollywood. 3, I love the character of Emma Channing, played by Margaret Ladd. She had been kind of traumatized from actually killing her uncle Jason Giamberti. So she was kind of this fragile. I want to say she was kind of stunted emotionally in her development, and so it's very interesting to have her be a major character on the show in the whole series. She ended up having a kid named Angela. She had love lives. They all were tragic, of course, but she stood up to Angela her mother. There was some this little like would do whatever she says. Her and Lance, her nephew, had a great relationship. She was good. She was a very different kind of unique character on a soap opera, and she wasn't stereotypical. They never went that route with her. But we'll probably do more character study on her too as we go along with this show. That's a coffee. Yummy. For Richard Channing. Richard Channing. David Selby played Richard Channing so good. He was so good. He was a perfect villain coming on. Well, again, we'll talk about him more later in the series too. Perfect villain who became this anti-hero. And he was the blend of Angela's ex-husband and Chase's mother. So he's half brother to Chase, illegitimate son, stepson or whatever to Angela, caused conflict. He was a wild card. But he was also funny, sarcastic, serious, vulnerable. Maggie, of course, later, their relationship was great. He was a great character. It's the tradition of like the Greg Sumners of Knots Landing, or there's other characters that are kind of like, they're not really villains. They were villainous at some point, kind of. She came for revenge, of course, but he was like an anti-hero at some point. And so I think that it makes more interesting characters, right? Number 5 is controversial. I enjoyed the last season of Falcon Crest, and Michael Sharp, Gregory Harrison, who's on General Hospital right now. Gregory Harrison really did work it out. And Gregory Harrison worked it out, and he really, really brought a new energy to the show. They did. We're going to talk about the last season in detail on this show because it's controversial last season. I liked the addition of him, Michael Sharp. I liked his addition. Let's say that. Number 6, I loved me some Anna Alicia, who played Melissa Agretti. She was a vixen. She was, involved in triangles. She was pretty. She was sassy. Always need those. Reminds me of a Sammy Joe, but maybe a little smarter from Dynasty. Number 7 or 8, the cliffhangers. I like some of the cliffhangers. Some of them were realistic. Some of them were sensationalistic. I loved them. Let's name some of these. Let's name these cliffhangers. There was a whodunit. There was a plane crash with most of the characters on it. 3 did die. Three. Or they're all 3. 3, get the math. A bomb explosion. Of course, a California earthquake. Made sense. A possible drowning in the SF Bay. SF being San Francisco. Richard murdered by the 13. Or the 13. Those were all cliffhangers. The very end of the series was Angela came out. There was a wedding celebration. She came out, did a monologue, and kind of toasted the audience. It was kind of cool the way he did that when she came back. Love a good cliffhanger. A lot of shows that I write good cliffhangers too. The next one I like, Chow Lee. He was Angela's kind of chauffeur. Did other things for her. He was always present, always there. He was like part of the family. I love seeing Chow Lee. He was just a welcome character to have on the show. I don't know if it's controversial because he was her chauffeur and other things he did, servant of some sort. I don't know. I liked him. His real name was Chow Lee in real life too. And of course, Angela Channing. I love Mr. Susan Sullivan as Maggie. That was my girl. Don't get me started. I loved her, of course. But Angela Channing, of course, is the reason why we had the show. And it's ironic that she was the lead of a hit show, that was in the top 10 for 3 seasons, while her ex-husband was president of the United States. Who would have thunk it? But she was vulnerable. She was just like evil, mean, loving, rough, tough, sensitive. She was a stalwart. She was just kind of like, she was Angela Channing. She was Angela Channing. So we watched it to see what she would do. And her and Richard, their relationship was kind of interesting. Her and Maggie, their relationship was kind of interesting. Her and Channing, all her relationship with everybody was just very interesting. So the show would be what it was if it wasn't for Angela Channing, Jane Wyman. So that's the reason why I like Falcon Crest. And you can Tell me what you like about Falcon Crest yourself. And like I said, I will throughout this whole after show season, we'll be talking more in depth about many of these things and more. And I'm hoping to get guests. I'm reaching out already to people. I'm hoping if you know any kind of connections to any ex Falcon Crest cast members, I don't care if they're minor, major, doesn't matter. I want to talk to them with them on the after show. Send them my direction. James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms, or JLJ Media, JLJ Media 1 on all social media platforms. Under the YouTube network, JLJ Media, or any of the streaming platforms you find us on. Do you listen to us? If you like Apple, you find us there. You like Google, find us there. iHeartRadio, Spotify, you can find us anywhere. I think it's a, I think I did. I think about everybody at this point. So check us out. New episodes on Fridays. A whole lot of drama Fridays here on JLJ Media. I'm very happy about that. Subscribe, like, comment, tell what you think. Share with all the Falcon Crest fans, of course. I'll see you next week. Everybody, please be safe wherever you are. And I'm sending positive energy to you. And we'll see you next time.